Ready, set, hut, hut.
As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sound of gold and blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50, the 10, the 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
The Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride!
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
We've no doubt tonight they shouldn't have played the old Golden Boot. Not this night!
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the gold and blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into another live stream here on the Country Roads Webcast, August 13th edition. And man, who would have thunk it, a couple weeks into fall camp now. I mean, we're getting close to game prep at this point. And we're not only talking roster updates, but I had to wipe the dust off to break out the old transfer portal tracker because we've got multiple transfer updates to talk about as well. A couple of these we've covered in the past live streams. A couple of these you already knew about, but a couple more that I haven't had a chance to talk about yet. I was hoping they'd be listed on the university's official roster. We could do a roster update, but for now, not quite there yet. We're going to have to settle for the transfer update, but I'm sure in due time they'll be up there on the university's official roster, and we can do a roster update as well. But with that being said, we do still have a bit of a roster update, although it's a little bit more on the pessimistic side than the optimistic side, as we have confirmation of one of the players that had eligibility concerns, unfortunately, will not be with the Mountaineers this upcoming season. So we'll talk about that here throughout the stream. So one player to remove from the roster and 4 potential players to add to our transfer in list that will soon be added to the official roster as well, some of which have already been practicing with the team even. So some fun updates to go over here roster-wise, which, of course, these come out, right after I finish the position preview series here on the channel. But that's okay. That's okay. It gives us something to talk about, keeps us moving here throughout the preseason as we get ever so close to the start of the 2025 season. But that's what's on the docket for this one. We're going to cover the player that's no longer on the roster. We got a clip from Rich Rod's press conference addressing that. It was kind of rumored before. Now we get official confirmation as to why he was removed from the roster, why he won't be with the team for the upcoming season. Hurts that running back position, which once was so loaded. We're hoping for positive news on Ty Edwards moving forward there. Now we'll see what happens, but we do, of course, have another addition coming into that room we've talked about in the past. We'll cover him again and the other 3 transfers that'll be making their way into the program, some of which are already on campus. So we'll get to talking about that momentarily. Just want to let you guys know what was on the schedule for this stream, but appreciate you guys tuning in this one, whether you're watching live or on the playback. If you're watching live on Facebook or Twitch, be sure to come over to the Country Roads Webcast YouTube channel, subscribe here, get access to our pre-recorded videos like our entire position preview series we just wrapped up, and our podcast episodes, which we just kicked off season 8 with our season prediction roundtable. Here soon we're going to have the Robert Morris preview. We'll have preview and predictions and reactions for every single game throughout the 2025 season. So be sure to come over to the YouTube channel, subscribe here, get access to the pre-recorded videos, the podcast episodes, which are going to be coming hot and heavy throughout the season, in addition to these live streams, which you can catch on Facebook and Twitch. But appreciate you guys tuning in there. If you are here on YouTube, whether you're watching live or on the playback, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. That helps out a ton with that YouTube algorithm, helps us find more Mountaineer fans like yourself. And like I said, if you're one of those that hasn't yet, hit that subscribe button. Ton of content coming your way. And if you're someone that can't get enough content, we'd love for you to hit that join button down below in the video description or over on the YouTube channel homepage. That way you'll get not only everything that you get here on the main channel, but you also will get film reviews after each game, the player grades after each game, almost heaven hangouts, game watch-alongs, all of that there are bonuses for channel members. Trying to give back to you guys for helping keep this mic recording and that camera rolling. And shout out to you guys to listen on any podcast platform there on the audio side. If you're listening there, leave us a rating wherever you're listening. That helps us out on that side of things. So with that bit of housekeeping out of the way, let's get ready to get into this one. Let's start it off here with the unfortunate roster update that we have to remove a player from the roster. And it is one of the running backs we were concerned about, and one of the running backs we were very excited about for the upcoming season as well. So from the horse's mouth himself, let's play the Rich Rod press conference clip talking about this earlier today.
Rich, as of this morning, one of the running backs doesn't appear on the roster anymore.
Who's that?
The SMU transfer, Jalen.
Yeah,
Is there any
unfortunately.
update on that, or what happened
Yeah,
there?
Jalen, he had an academic issue with one class, and it does not look like he's going to be eligible, which is a shame because he was working hard.
Unexpected to happen.
Yeah, don't expect to have him, and we really liked him. I thought he was a good player, and it's just that one issue came up, which is kind of a little bit of a surprise to everybody. So. Yeah, he won't be playing this year.
Okay, so interesting there because I think we get multiple answers to questions that popped up when this eligibility situation arose with Jalen Knighton, because he wasn't one of the ones that we knew about. We knew about Jeff Weimer, Ty Edwards, Justin Harrington, Jamori Robinson, but then all of a sudden Jalen Knighton's not practicing, and we're hearing could be an eligibility issue with him as well. Well, it turns out his isn't tied into theirs. His was more of an academic issue, as you heard Rich Rod say there, which hurts. It hurts to lose Jalen Knighton. I thought he was going to be a super explosive running back for West Virginia this season. You guys have heard me rave about him in the past, but unfortunately he goes the way of Lynn J. Dixon, who you guys may remember a couple seasons ago came in as a Clemson transfer, never got a chance to touch the field as a Mountaineer. Unfortunately, same goes for Jalen Knighton, who now we will remove from our CRW roster tracker. One of the redshirt seniors West Virginia had brought in, which leaves only the other redshirt senior, Ty Edwards, who we're hoping to get positive news on. I believe that hearing is on the 19th, and we should know about him, which that becomes even more so important now to get Ty Edwards eligible for the upcoming season, because you guys that watch position preview series, I thought Jalen Knighton was going to be, the number 2 to Jaheim White's number 1. Now that's open. Right now going through fall camp, looks like Dior Hubbard's kind of taking control of that role for the time being. But if Ty Edwards gets eligible, I think he has a shot to do that in his own right. We'll see what happens with that. So unfortunately, Jalen Knighton will not play for the West Virginia Mountaineers this upcoming season. We have to remove him from our roster, updating our running back position now, which, as you can see, practicing for WVU, we have Cannon Katzer, Jaheim White, Sincere Bowers, Clay Ash, and Dior Hubbard. Ty Edwards still listed on the roster, but we're waiting to hear about his eligibility along with the 3 others, which we've talked about in the past. But that's not the only players at the running back position, as we've heard talked about now, and we haven't got the official confirmation with him being added to the university's official roster. But you guys who watched the most recent live stream here on the channel probably saw Andre Devine is going to be coming in to join that running back room. There was a bit of a snafu, I guess you could call it, in Rich Rod's press conference from the 12th or 11th. I believe it was from the 12th, where he kind of held his paper up to his face, and on the back side of that paper had kind of the offensive depth chart. So people looked at that and were making notes from that. And Andre Devine was listed on that offensive depth chart. So seems like a formality now, just waiting on the official announcement. He's going to be there. I believe he's actually already been at practice, although he hasn't been on the field quite yet. So, multiple of these players that we're going to talk about are already on campus for WVU. 3 out of the 4 are already on campus. The 4th one, I believe, is going to be here over the weekend, if I'm not mistaken. So Andre Devine, we're waiting on the official announcement, waiting on him to be officially added to the university's roster before we do our roster update. But he's definitely coming in to the running back position. So we'll have another face there. So like I said, I had to knock some dust off of this transfer portal tracker because it's been so long since we used it, right? But let me pull that back up to show you guys the updated transfer in list, because I never would have thought that a couple weeks into camp we'd be adding 4 names to the transfer in list that are going to soon be on the West Virginia roster for 2025. We've talked about a couple of these. We've talked about Andre Devine, the running back coming over from Jack State. We've talked about Omotosho, the edge rusher coming over from Oregon State, probably going to be playing the bandit position at WVU. But since then, we've also not had a chance to talk about here on the channel. Linebacker Caleb nuhi-yandall, who's coming from Cerritos Community College, already practicing with the team from what I understand. And funny enough, I think that this is maybe a little bit of a connection with one of West Virginia's other transfers that they brought in. Because in that first portal cycle, if you guys remember Adam Tomczyk, the defensive end, he was from Cerritos Community College as well. So Caleb nuhi-yandall comes to West Virginia now at the linebacker position, a junior college edition. And then most recently, Hubert Hendrickson III from Franklin Pierce University, a D2 school, announced today on social media that he'll be joining the program. So 4 transfers coming in here throughout camp. Let's pull up the announcement from Hubert Hendrickson because he is the most recent addition for West Virginia. Now, I will go ahead and say, I think that this is more of a developmental piece that could potentially happen and help in the future, rather. He's coming from Franklin Pierce University where he redshirted last season. So coming from a D2 program, but he'll be a redshirt freshman. So someone that still has all of his eligibility remaining, essentially. You see, he put out on social media, Go Mountaineers, and put out his commitment graphic earlier today. And he has good length, 6'2", good size for a corner, but I believe he's only about 150, maybe 160 pounds. So someone that's definitely going to have to go through that strength and training program with Mike Joseph, bulk up a little bit before he gets a chance to see any extensive action or get onto the field. But what I do like about Hubert Hendrickson is obviously, college experience coming from the D2 level, even though he redshirted, he's been through a collegiate program, right? But I also like that he's a track and field guy. And so, you bring in a track and field guy who obviously has some speed to be able to participate in the track and field side of things, but he has that 6'2" frame to go along with it. You add a little bit of weight over time. He's a redshirt freshman, plenty of time to develop him both physically, fundamentally, all the, aspects that he needs there at the position. Who knows, 2 or 3 years down the road, he could be a really good player for you there at the cornerback position, as if she adds Hubert Hendrickson III to the roster for this upcoming season as well. Like I said, from Franklin Pierce University there at the D2 level, redshirted this past season, was at Christ the King High School coming out of New York there. Previously played receiver and corner there. Like I said, West Virginia recruiting him as a cornerback, but he does have all of his years of eligibility remaining. As you can see, he put out on social media back when he entered the portal, which I believe was late May, 4 years of eligibility in football. That's what we like to hear. A redshirt freshman coming in there at the cornerback position. And look at this, a sprinter. We know we value speed. Like I said, we'll have to add some size, 6'2", 150, a bit frail there, but you love the 6'2" frame that he's possessing, and you can develop everything else around that. So I'm excited about the pickup of Hubert Hendrickson III to the cornerback room for West Virginia for the future. Now, other than that, we have talked in the past about Andre Devine. I think he's another guy that's more for the future. But the linebacker and edge rusher West Virginia brought in, we're kind of going to have to wait and see because both of those guys are a little bit more fitting size-wise. Let's start with Omotosho, who we've talked about in the past. Like I said, I believe he's going to be a bandit at WVU. He's already practicing, and I believe the next guy that we're going to talk about as well is already practicing also. 6'2", was not able to find a weight on Omotosho, unfortunately. But you look at his numbers, and man, that season that he had at Wyoming, you can see how we parlayed that into moving up to Oregon State. When you look, 46 tackles, 6.5 sacks, and a forced fumble. His year there at Wyoming as a redshirt freshman. Then went to Oregon State, where unfortunately he's kind of battled the injury bug since then. But if he can get back to fully healthy and get back into that form that he had at Wyoming, he's a guy that can help you coming off the edge. So I like the addition of Omotosho, especially when you get him as late as you did in the process, coming in fall camp, already practicing with the Mountaineers. So that's a plus for the upcoming season. And then we have to talk about Caleb nuhi-yandall, who I think is a good pickup for multiple reasons. One, you're a little bit thin at linebacker, especially with a lot of the guys being more upperclassmen. You bring in kind of an underclassman here in nuhi-yandall as a sophomore, but 6'1", 225, good size coming in, and transitioning from the junior college to the power conference is not as big of a jump, in my opinion, as going high school or anything like that. He has some experience at this level, playing collegiate football anyways. And, he has a teammate that he's familiar with now as well. As we know, Adam Tomczyk already on the roster. He also came from Cerritos College. But what you got here in nuhi-yandall, as you can see, one of the team captains there at Cerritos finished the season with 30 tackles, 3.5 TFLs, a sack, a fumble recovery, and a PBU. Had 10 tackles in one game against Citrus College, which, funny enough, Citrus College, who's from there, Keenan Eck. So, multiple ties to the junior college additions that West Virginia brought in. But I do think that I like the addition here of Caleb nuhi-yandall. I don't know if he'll help you, a ton this season. Definitely another good body to have in the room there at the linebacker spot, but another guy that has a bright future, I think, in nuhi-yandall. And especially when you add guys this late that have that type of potential, you love it. You call it a steal when you get somebody, at this point in fall camp to join the roster. So, like I said, they're not officially listed on the university's official roster yet, so we're going to add them to the CRW roster tracker. But we know they are coming in. We know they are on campus. So to sum it all up here, unfortunately, we lose Jalen Knighton, but we are bringing in Andre Devine from Jack State in the near future. Not quite practicing yet, but has been spotted, on the field, although not practicing. He's been there as an onlooker. And then Hubert Hendrickson III from Franklin Pierce University, not yet on campus. I believe he'll be here over the weekend from what I understand. And that's another corner to add to your secondary. And then, of course, the edge rusher, Omatosho from Oregon State, going to play the band at WVU, already been practicing. And I believe the same goes for nuhi-yandall from the junior college ranks, already practicing as well. So 4 new additions to the roster here in the midst of fall camp, and we'll do a roster update to add them to our roster tracker once they show up on the university's official roster. So that's the main news that I had there, guys, a roster update and then a quick transfer update. Hate to lose Jalen Knighton. Do like the pieces that we've added, here in the midst of fall camp. But hopefully we get positive news on Ty Edwards, because what once was an absolutely loaded running back room now is a little bit thin. Now maybe a little bit something you're concerned about there, especially if Ty Edwards doesn't get eligible, because then you're looking at Jaheim White. You're looking at Dior Hubbard, who has no experience. He's a redshirt freshman, although been getting rave reviews. And then you have Cannon Katzer from D2. You have Sincere Bowers from JUCO, and you have Clay Ash, who hasn't really got any reps yet either. So unfortunately, without Ty Edwards getting eligible, which, like I said, we're waiting till I think the 19th is the date that court date is set for Ty Edwards, Jeffrey Weimer, Justin Harrington, and Jamori Robinson. We should know about those guys. But even at that point, you're 11 days from the opener, so you're likely not going to see those guys against Robert Morris, at least extensively. So probably going into game 1 of the season, you're looking at Jaheim White and a slew of guys with next to no experience at this level. Now, I think there's a lot of talent in that room. You've heard me talk about Sincere Bowers and his speed. Cannon Katzer won a natty at the D2 level and was, kind of their go-to running back. Dior Hubbard's turned a lot of heads despite being a redshirt freshman. Clay Ash won the Tommy Nikolic Award, but none of those guys have any reps at the power conference level, essentially. Dior Hubbard's had some sparingly. Clay Ash has had some sparingly. But for the most part, no extensive experience at the power conference, D1 FBS level for any of the running backs behind Jaheim White if Ty Edwards doesn't get eligible going into the season. So we're going to have to see how that shakes out. I still think there's a lot of potential in that running back room, but now it's, a lot of inexperience behind Jaheim White. We'll have to see how that shakes out. Defensively, I think that, the linebacker nuhi-yandall is a good addition for the future. I think the cornerback Hubert Hendrickson is definitely someone that's more for the future. I think if any of those guys that we're naming here with the 4 transfers we're talking about is going to get some extensive playing time or some reps this season, you're probably looking at Omatosho at the bandit spot, especially if Robinson's not able to get eligible. He'd probably get some reps there. Devine, I think, is more for the future. He redshirted last season. He probably still needs to add some size. So, he's probably more for the future right now as well. But there's our guys that are going to help you, developmentally. They're going to help you in practice. They're going to help you prepare for games. So, it is good pieces to add to the roster nonetheless. Hate the news about Knighton. Think he was going to obviously be a contributor. You guys knew, to me, he was running back 2. That one hurts. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. That one hurts. It's got to be next man up mentality and hope some of these other running backs can step up now moving forward. Other than that, I'm going to get some of your all's comments here before we wrap up. But the last thing I wanted to touch on was the potential depth chart that we had. And I did have some notes from it in my phone. See if I can pull them up here. Now, it's not on the defensive side, which I think a lot of this, funny enough, kind of goes hand in hand with kind of my projected pecking orders as we went through the position preview series here on the channel, which be sure to check out those pre-recorded videos if you haven't already. Went through every position on the roster, highlighted each player at the spot, gave my projected pecking order at the end of the video for each of the spots going through the roster. And I think a lot of these on offense kind of match up with what I had. So people have kind of zoomed in and tried to make notes from this. So it looks like, as far as the offensive depth chart that Rich Rod had, and the big caveat here we got to note, guys, is this is subject to change, right? This could be a day-to-day thing. He could have a different depth chart tomorrow. I mean, you never know. But I think the offensive line is kind of what we were expecting here. From left to right, it looked like starting left tackle, Nick Cray, starting left guard, Walter Youngbear, starting center, Landon Livingston, starting right guard, Kimo Makaneole, and starting right tackle, Tykeist Crawford. Kind of what we all assumed it would be. Left tackle was the one that I was a little bit questionable on, but it seems like Nick Cray has stepped up there, which is good to hear. We'll see if that remains the case. Tight end, it looked like Grayson Barnes, Ryan Ward, and Jacob Barrick, which to me, the surprise there was Ryan Ward shooting up the depth chart so high, but maybe we shouldn't be surprised, especially when we heard Rich Rod talk about him making a big catch in the scrimmage there. And then we go to the skill positions here. Quarterback, you had ors in between the top three names. You had Nico Marchio or Jalen Henderson or Max Brown. So it seems like, Coach Rod said he has 5 he feels like he can win with, and I do believe he does feel that way. But it seems like kind of as we expected, the 2 transfers and Nico Marchio are the guys kind of battling there at the top with Nico, Jalen, and Max Brown there. Then you had Scotty Fox behind them, Khalil Wilkins behind them, kind of as expected as your 4 and 5. Running back, on that depth chart that was shown, it was Jaheim White first string, Dewar Hubbard second string, Cannon Katzer third string, Sincere Bowers fourth string, Andre Devine fifth string, Clay Ash sixth string. And then the receivers, you had on the outside Cam Vaughn at the X, Jaden Bray at the Z, which is kind of what I expected. Behind Cam Vaughn at the X, you had Justin Smith-Brown, Jarrell Williams, Christian Hamilton, Logan Ramper. I'm not sure if there were ors listed in between the names. Couldn't quite make that out. On the other side, you had Preston Fox behind Bray, and then you had Cyrus Trawl and Jordan McCants, which I was surprised to see Cyrus Trawl potentially listed on the outside. But then it's your Y receiver, your slot man. There was an or in between Gallagher and Man Singleton, so it seems like those two were still battling for the potential starting job. And I think there was even an or in there for Gerard Bowie as well. So Gerard Bowie, Man Singleton, Rodney Gallagher battling for the starting slot receiver position there. And I think what you've heard Rich Rod say is he really feels good about those slot receivers from the guys we mentioned. Plus you add Amani Weaver into the mix there. He feels like it's one of the most talented slot receiver positions that he's had, which is pretty big. And then I think that's pretty much everything that we had there listed on the offensive depth chart. Defensive, we haven't had a chance to see that one yet. Maybe in the near future, Rich Rod will accidentally tease us with the defensive depth chart. But I think that one's pretty straightforward from what I've talked about. For my projected pecking order, I think on the D-line, you're looking at some combination of Eddie V, Eddie Kelly, and then maybe Devin Grant. Because it sounds like Jamori Robinson's probably going to play the Bandit. I know we went through our position preview series. I had him more at defensive line, but that's because that's what he's listed at in West Virginia's official roster. But when Jeff Castile was interviewed, talked about the Bandits, he mentioned Jamori Robinson there as well. So it seems like he might fit in more at Bandit, which, that's kind of the caveat I provided, is you could flex him out to Bandit. And, if you feel like that gets you your best 11 on the field with some of your defensive linemen. And so I think if Jamori is eligible, he'll probably be your starting Bandit. If it's not him there, you'll see Braden Siders, you'll see Curtis Jones, both absolute freaks. Then I think at the linebacker spot, you're looking at Chase Wilson, Reed Carrico, Ben Bogle, Ben Cutter, John Lewis. Those are going to be your guys in the mix there. Like I said, if I had to give you a starting 2, I think on my position preview series, I was thinking Chase Wilson, Ben Bogle, but I think Reed Carrico is going to be the other one. I think it's going to be Chase Wilson and Reed Carrico as your 2 starting linebackers. Get into the secondary, I think you're looking at Jordy Scruggs and Michael Coates as your 2 starting corners. Behind them, Devontae Golden-Nelson, Jason Chambers, probably the next man up. The nickel spot, I think you're going to start Fred Perry there, but, William Davis is going to get a ton of playing time there. You could even flex out some of the corners there. Safeties, like I said, right now, without Justin Harrington in the mix, I'd probably go Jordy Walker and Darian Lewis, but Derek Carter and KK Tarnu, definitely good candidates there as well. So wanted to cover the defensive side of things, so to kind of have a little bit of a preview of what the offensive depth chart's looking like right now as well. But the main course here, I guess you can say, was I wanted to come on. I had to talk a little bit about Jalen Knighton. Super disappointed that he won't be playing for the Mountaineers this upcoming season, but definitely need some of those other guys to step up. Definitely have to have our fingers crossed now that we get positive news on Ty Edwards. Glad that we're adding Andre Devine into the mix, and excited about some of these other transfers that we're bringing in here in the midst of fall camp as well, with a linebacker, a bandit, a corner, and then, of course, Devine at running back. So that's what I had pretty much, guys. Appreciate y'all tuning into this one. I'm going to catch up on some of y'all's comments before we wrap up. But just one more reminder, if you're watching on Facebook or Twitch, be sure to come over to the YouTube side, subscribe here so you can get our pre-recorded videos, our podcast episodes, which will be coming out fast and furious here over the next few months, with football season kicking off here just a little over 2 weeks now. We're going to have previews and recaps of every game, a ton of fun stuff here on the main channel. And then, of course, if you are here on YouTube, whether you're watching live or on the playback, hit that thumbs up button. Helps out a ton with that YouTube algorithm. And if you want to help us further, hit that join button down below. Help keep this mic recording, that camera rolling. And in addition, you're going to get a ton of bonus content, film reviews for the games this season, game watch-alongs for some of the away games. The list goes on there for channel members, and we really appreciate that support. But like I said, if you can't support us that way, it's fast, easy, and free. Just hit that thumbs up button, and that helps out a lot as well. You guys on the audio side on any podcast platform, leave us a rating there. That helps on that side of things. And with that being said, let me get some of your all's comments, and we will call it a show here with our transfer portal and roster update here on this August 13th CRW live stream. Got my guy JR in here. Let's go, Mountaineers. Indeed, JR. Good to see you in here, brother. Clinton Moses says, best of luck to Omatosho if you haven't looked up his Wyoming stats. Yeah, his Wyoming stats are super impressive. Appreciate that, Clinton Moses. Appreciate you coming in here, sharing those kind thoughts, man. Yeah, if he can get back healthy and get back to that form he had at Wyoming, man, you talk about another pass rusher just to add into the mix to a lot of talented pass rushers that are on this roster. I mean, you go down the list, it's frightening. It's frightening for opposing offenses, right? I mean, Jamori Robinson, obviously, first and foremost, if we can get him eligible, but Braden Sider's going to be great at rushing the passer. Curtis Jones, we've talked about how much of a freak he is, how good he's going to be at rushing the passer. Devin Grant, Eddie Kelly, on down the list. And then you add Omatosho in, if we can get him healthy, man, it's going to be fun. And these edges of this defense that Zach Alley's talked about certainly are seeming more solidified the closer we get to the season. I'm getting more excited about this Zach Alley defense as well. Viper Strike says, man, this sucks. He was going to be a big play guy. Completely agree, man. I waxed poetic on here about Jalen Knighton plenty of times, multiple times since we picked up his commitment via the portal. I've had fun playing with him on, College Football 26, which get your reps in with him while you can on there, because on the next roster update, I'm sure he'll be off of there as well. But yeah, it sucks, man. No way to sugarcoat it, unfortunately. And I think it sucks even worse because it was a surprise, not only to us as fans, but also to the coaching staff. They thought they would have him as well. So just a, kick in the nads to, put it lightly, I guess. Unfortunately, to lose Jalen Knighton was going to be a hell of a 1-2 combo with Jaheim White, I think. But fingers crossed, Ty Edwards can be a good 1-2 combo still yet. And then, of course, I really do have a lot of faith in, Cannon Katz or Sincere Bowers. I know they don't have experience at this level yet, but I think they're really talented players. So we'll see what shakes out there. Luckily, our running back room was absolutely loaded, so we're able to endure a little bit of these losses. But I would love to have Ty Edwards. I'd love to have someone with a little bit more experience to go along with Jaheim White, since we're not going to have Knighton. But I agree. It sucks, Viper Strike. I think he was going to be a really good player. Hate to hear it about Jalen Knighton. Jersey Ear. What you guys be sure to check out Jersey Ear here on YouTube. He's been putting out some really great content as well. Another great WVU channel you guys should check out, my friend Jersey Ear. He says, Rich Rod got a ton out of Trey Stewart last year. That's at least a good sign. Yeah, great point. If Jaheim White does have to carry the load, he's more than capable. You guys know how big of a Jaheim White fan I am. I think he's in for a huge year. I'm thinking near, 1,500 yards rushing, if not more. And speaking of Trey Stewart, he had 1,660 some last year, nearly 1,700 yards. And that's with a quarterback that ran for 1,200 and Tyler Huff there at Jack State. So, if we can get a Trey Stewart-esque year out of Jaheim White, we're going to be sitting pretty here this upcoming season. So, I think that's the main thing, right? That's the main thing we continue to hang our hat on, is the fact that Jaheim White came back. He can carry the load if we need him to. And, Rich Rod's shown he can do it by committee. He can do it with one guy carrying the load like Trey Stewart did last year. So definitely, I think that we don't have a ton to be worried about as far as the run game is concerned. I do like what we have left, but at the same time, it does make you a little bit leery with no one really with a ton of experience behind Jaheim if Ty Edwards doesn't get eligible, but super, super high on Jaheim and what he can do in this offense the upcoming season for sure. And, look at Trey Stewart's numbers last year if you want to get even more excited about that. That's a great point jersey year. So, a little bit of both on this one, a little bit of, downside, a little bit of upside. We'll hate to lose Knighton, but we are bringing in some good players here, I think, via the portal, and hopefully here in the near future, we'll be able to put out a roster update once they're added to the university's official roster. So look for that coming on the channel. Look for our Robert Morris preview and predictions, and we'll try and continue to cover things here in these live streams moving forward, whether it be press conferences and the like. Try and get some more of these live streams rolling for you guys here in the near future, so be on the lookout for those as well. But appreciate you guys catching this one. Appreciate you guys that chatted live with me. If you didn't get a chance to do that, you can throw your thoughts in the comments section. Appreciate those interactions as well as we continue to try and grow the CRW community throughout Mountaineer Nation. Having said that, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.